Okay, welcome everybody. Hope everyone's well. So there's a crazy storm going on outside right now, the thunder and lightning, and potential heavy winds and whatnot. Okay, so we have some people online. I think at least one person is still coming in person, but we're all able to, Baruch Hashem, learn Torah together. I know that this whole Zoom thing that we have, that really is something that seems to have come mainly out of COVID. The Baruch Hashem, it has it's done some amazing things for Klal Yisrael, that we're able to use such a tool to connect and to learn together, around the world, and even in the same city. But when it's difficult to get out, we're still able to learn together. So, Baruch Hashem, some good things came out from that difficult time, for sure. Okay, welcome, Vered. We have one person at least in person. Okay, so right, let's get right into it. Let's just say that our learning should still be for refuah shlema for those who need it. Yaakov and Miriam is one of them, and we should all get on track with our health and with our ruchnius, our spirituality, and find ourselves in good places together. Yimirtza Hashem. Yeah. Please, yeah, thank you. Okay, so let's get going. So, we're about to venture into some difficult territory in this Torah, and with things that are a little hard to nail down, and some things that we have to be extremely careful with. There's things that are very touchy, and you'll hear as we're going to get into them shortly. So it's important that this is a pre-shir caveat. Don't take my quotes over here until you hear the whole shir today. Don't take like shorts. They have you publish shorts on social media nowadays, short pieces. We got to be careful with the shorts in this video because there's a lot of very, very controversial, difficult things that are going to come out here. Okay, so the main thing we've been talking about over here is this idea of connecting ourselves to the Chacham of the Ribono Shel Olam, really, the Chacham of Hashem, and how we download really this Chacham from Hashem through Emunas Chachamim, through being aligned with all the Chachamim now and through history, through having Rabbanim and teachers who have Emunas Chachamim, and their teachers and rabbis had Emunas Chachamim, and so did theirs and theirs and theirs, all the way to Moshe Rabbeinu and to Hashem. That's where the Chachma came from originally. And so through aligning ourselves with this, we're able to receive something. We're able to receive wisdom from our entire Masorah, for the whole of Yiddishkeit. Once again, I know I said this before, but you cannot do Judaism without Emunas Chachamim, and without all of the Torah Shebaal Peh, and without all of the Svarim, and all of the Gemara, and all of the Poskim, and everything. It's not Judaism if we don't have this. This is kind of one of the main things of this Torah. And we're going to see how historical this is as we get on further today. Beit HaMikdash now. Amen. Okay. But it's downloading, it's aligning ourselves with the wisdom of Hashem through the embodiment of Jewish tradition, Masorah, right? And when we're in that place, and we live according to that alignment, so we're in the Derech HaMamutza, we're in the middle path, and we're on the right track, we're going upright, we're going straight, we have Mishpatei Emes, our decisions make sense, the things we have to do make sense, we have clarity, we're not pulled to the right by our physical desires and by our flow and by being too much in the moment, and we're not pulled to the left by being too restrictive and angry and whatever goes along with the left side. Rather, we're in the middle, and we're able to live in a spiritually and emotionally, psychologically, physically healthy way. This is the Derech HaMamutza. And And when we don't do this, we are this middle path, and all of our Masorah and all of the words of the Chachamim are what make our lives, every minute of our lives, a place of value, a place of meaning. It's what gives our lives meaning and purpose. So when we have Emunas Chachamim, and we have our whole tradition and Masorah behind us, and we're aligned with that, we live lives of meaning and purpose, which is where we want to be. Mashen Kain, when we don't do that, so we get what becomes of us is that we live lives that are the opposite of meaningful and purposeful. Meaninglessness, purposelessness. I'm sure there's better words than that, but that's what we're going with so far. Meaning, what do? I just spend my time doing useless things that don't add value to my existence. They're not things that I'm going to look back from Olam Emes, from the world of truth, and say, oh, look what I did that day. No, it's embarrassing already. The way we waste our time nowadays, and the way we're not contributing and not doing good things. Right? So that's the other side. Things that are extraneous, not necessary, not meaningful, not purposeful. Rather extraneous and useless. So take your pick. I know I made fun of different practices that people have nowadays. We talked about the 4-hour golf game. We'll leave that one aside for now. We talked about the scrolling and the social media, and I don't know. There's plenty of things. So and that is an aspect of what we call moisres, extraneous extra things, and that is connected to the physical health of our body and the way that our body processes food. When we take in food, the way that we relate to food and the way that we relate to wisdom is going to define how that food affects us. Because when we take in food, so the nutrients come out of the food, and the good things go into our digestive system, and they get transmitted into our bloodstream, let's say, and then that goes and feeds the rest of our body, and goes straight to our brain and gives us the ability to think clearly. So when we have a good relationship with food, we have a clarity, and we use the good part of the food. It illuminates us. We're relating to the food in a spiritual way. That's part of our tradition. We spoke about this a lot last week. When I'm eating in a holy and purposeful way, so that food energy, the spiritual and physical energy of the food, gives me light, like illumination type of light. Mashen Kain, if I eat like a chazer, if I eat like a davar achar, if I eat like this, then the food clouds me and pulls me down. It sits in my intestines and produces negative spiritual, I don't know what you call it, vapors that then come up and cloud my brain, and it makes me tired and confused, and darkness and sadness overcomes me, right? Why? All because of this. I hope everybody has some type of recognition of this or experience of this. Oh, maybe we can put it down here. Thank you so much. Thank you. Vera's taking care of me and giving me some tea. Thank you. Something like herbal, if there is anything. Sorry, everyone. Oh, perfect. Okay. We're doing chamomile today. Okay. So we're going to have some tea now. Mitzvah Hashem, it'll be, we'll try to relate to it in a spiritual way, and hopefully it'll illuminate us instead of pulling us down. So this is when the body is, when the body is not processing this properly, what happens is we have a negative relationship with waste matter, and our body struggles to digest and to evacuate this food that we eat, and it becomes a whole experience, right? It becomes stuck in our system, and so we have a problem and a difficulty. Yigias basar. Our flesh is contending with the digestion of the food, right? I still keep getting this in my mind about, if you ever have this experience where you way overeat. I don't know if you're at an event or something and you just eat too much, or it's like and you end up like in pain and like sweaty. You can sweat, right? I'm embarrassed to say that I've experienced this before. but your body is sweating because it's working so hard to deal with this terrible thing that you've done to yourself by mindlessly and purposelessly eating such a volume of food. It's not good for you. It takes a toll on your yigias basar, right? So that waste matter is called moisris, it's called excrement, it's called extraneous. And this is our punishment now from behaving in this way. If we choose to not listen to our tradition, to not align ourselves with all of our Masorah, all the beautiful aspects of Judaism, then you know what's going to be? We're going to live a life where this is our life, where eating is a sport, right? And all the, you know, and we feel terrible. Our lives don't feel good because it's all meaningless, right? I'm always reminded, you know, there's Rabbi Nachman was very against philosophy, but you know, there's I'm going to go out on a limb here and bring in over here because he's different. Viktor Frankl, who of course his famous book is called Man's Search for Meaning. And over there, he talks about the importance of like the almost singular and universal importance of meaning in a person's life. That even he wrote this book while in a concentration camp. And he said that you could see a difference. People who had some type of meaning in their existence over there, people who were trying to help others, who were kind to others, who had an idea of what they would do when they got out, they held on. They were able to be stronger. But without meaning, people were done. Game over, that's it. They wasted away. Right? So you know, this is meaning, doing things for purpose and for meaning in our lives. Really, this is kind of what we're talking about over here. I'm telling you, Breslevers could be very mad at me right now for the way I'm talking. Have to be careful. Bringing in philosophy, connecting it to Rabbi Nachman, but okay, I think everybody knows where I'm coming from here. This is just me, not, you know, we know. Okay. Right. So what happens is when we do like this and we're in this negative way of existence, it clouds our mind, and the extraneous nature of all of this confuses us, and we don't have clarity. Okay. So then the Rebbe brings now an example from Doeg. So Doeg was a tremendous story. So we'll tell the story outside again. I know we said it last time. We'll say it. Two aspects to it now. So Doeg was around at the time of David HaMelech, and he was the Av Bezdin. He was the head of the Sanhedrin. He was extremely learned. Very, very, very big Talmud Chacham, rabbi. Right? And yet, this is like a perfect transition piece from what we've been doing now to what we're going to do after this today. But so yet, somehow, he was able to become one of the worst people in history, and also to make errors in judgment. Despite the fact that he was the head of the Sanhedrin, he made tremendous mistakes in mishpat, in decision-making, judgment. Right? So what did he do? So the first thing that happened was that so when David HaMelech was not David HaMelech yet, he was just David the shepherd, and Shaul HaMelech was King Saul. Right? So everybody knows the famous story of David and Goliath, right? So the story goes that Shaul HaMelech was like the tallest of the Jewish soldiers, and his armor was therefore very tall. And as we know, David HaMelech was tiny. So David HaMelech said that whoever goes to kill Goliath will take his armor, and also if whoever kills Goliath will get his daughter's hand in marriage. So David HaMelech came to try out, like many other people did, and somehow a miracle occurred, and the armor of the king fit him. It morphed, whatever, to fit him properly. So Shaul HaMelech knew that something was interesting over here. So he sent Avner, one of his trusted advisors, to go and see what's going on over here. And so Avner was checking him out to see, is he worthy of having the king's daughter in marriage? Maybe is he worthy, right? And so at that point, so Doeg piped up and said, is he worthy to have the king's daughter's hand in marriage? We should be asking first, is he even worthy to be part of the Jewish people? Why? Because he is a descendant of Ruth the Moabite, Ruth HaMoaviyah, right? And there's a halacha that anyone can convert to Judaism, except for, right, a couple of different types of people, but one of them is a Moabite, a Moavi. And so, this is what Doeg said. He said, he comes from Moab. He is not even Jewish. He cannot be allowed to even marry anyone, never mind the king's daughter. Right? And so, Avner tried to make defenses and fight back, whatever, but Doeg was very smart, and he kept fighting back, and this was his psak, that David HaMelech is not Jewish, basically. If you can imagine such a thing. Right? So, at the same time, so Doeg was the head of the Sanhedrin, the head of the big Jewish court, right? However, there was also at the same time was Shmuel Hanavi, the prophet Shmuel, Samuel, right? And Shmuel Hanavi also had a court. He had his own chevra, his own yeshiva, his own court, right? And so Shmuel Hanavi, besides for being the one who anointed kings, and this was and he was a prophet, he was a Navi, he was on the top. He was the prophet and the biggest sage, Talmid Chacham of the time. So in his court, they determined the halacha is really that law only applies to a male Moabite, but a female Moabite can indeed become Jewish, and that's how Rus was able to become Jewish, even though she was from Moab. Right? This is the determination that they made. But Doeg refused to accept this. He didn't accept this ruling, and he continued to contend that David HaMelech was not Jewish. You can imagine a more ludicrous stance to take. King David was not Jewish. Right? Then, after that, another thing happened where Doeg had heard that David HaMelech was in the city called Nov, Ir Kohanim, a city of priests, like Jewish Kohanim priests, and so when he saw this, he assumed that David HaMelech was there trying to garner support from the Kohanim to overthrow Shaul HaMelech, to overthrow King Saul. And so he went and told King Saul that this is what's happening, and he started a campaign to go and made a legal decision, and started a campaign to go now and wipe out all those Kohanim and David HaMelech. And he himself, not only that, he himself went, and they killed over there 85 Kohanim priests and their women and children. This is what he did. Right? Terrible, terrible, terrible story. L'chaim, thank you very much. Oh, that's good. So, now, guys, let's ask ourselves over here. How could this be? He's the head of the Sanhedrin. He's seemingly a smart person, and he made tremendous mistakes in Mishpat. Our whole Torah is talking about Mishpatei Emes, judgments of truth. Mishpatei Or, Hoitzi Mishpateinu La'or, bringing our judgments out to light, not to darkness, to light. Right? Mishpatei Hanhagas, the judgments of how we should act. Mishpatei Hanhagas Yesharos, upright, proper ways of behaving. And he was completely the opposite of all of these.
Wasn't Saul higher than him?
Than Doeg?
Not Saul, Samuel?
For sure.
So should he have
For
not
sure.
followed his suit?
Right, okay, very good. So let's speak it out. He should have. 100% he should have, but he didn't. Right?
So ego.
So this, Sandra says ego. So I'm sort of on the same page, but I just don't know. So let's go step by step. So what happened over here? So first of all, we see that the way that the events unfolded, he was a person who was not living with Emunas Chachamim. Shmuel Hanavi was the top. Shmuel Hanavi was like the Moshe Rabbeinu of this time. And Doeg should have been Mekabel from him, should have received from him, should have had the Emunas Chachamim in him. But something stopped him from receiving from him, right? And as a result, so we can see now a little bit how the pattern goes. He got into this problem with Emunas Chachamim, and it led him to even worse mistakes, let's say, in judgment, in mishpat, that he ended up making this terrible situation with Noiv Ir Kohanim, and wiping out all these people, right? But it flows, like you see. He actually first behaved with he went against Emunah Chachamim, and this is what began. Seems to be it follows suit that he therefore began to make terrible judgments in what happened over here, right? So it flows and it makes sense over here. So this is how it went. But let's see. This is all just the outside story. So let's see Rabbi Nachman's words now, because there's a few important points in the words of Rabbi Nachman here. So v'doyeg. This is, by the way, on page 204 in this book. V'doyeg ayadei shelimudei haya b'mechinas elu hamoisrais. Doyeg, since or through the fact that his learning came from this place of moisrais, of extraneousness, of non-emunas chachamim. This is where he learned. This is how he learned. Like it says by Doeg. So first of all, before we say what it says by Doeg and how Rabbi Nachman learns it in a very novel way. So remember, he was the Av Beis Din. But if all the Torah learning that he did, he learned a ton of Torah. But if that Torah that he's learning is coming from this place of moisrais, of non-emunat chachamim, of extraneousness, right? Then it's not going to lead to proper mishpat. It's not going to lead to clarity and light and truth and all of the things that we're talking about over here. It's going to go the other way, and that's really what happened. So this is the way he was learning, and so I want to say that this is the way that his Torah learning was happening, and because of that, he did not listen to Shmuel Hanavi. He was not ready to receive from Shmuel Hanavi. If you remember, go back a couple of pages over here. We spent a lot of time on this idea, but we said, Kol halemudim sha'adam loimed. All learning that a person learns, tzarich sheyekabel. We have to receive. We have to accept and receive. And then we can draw out from them true judgments. Doeg was not willing to receive. He had a prophet, a proven. No one in the world disagreed that Shmuel Hanavi was a prophet. He had a prophet above him who was also the biggest sage. And he somehow refused to receive from him, to accept from him. Right? So his learning was in this place of moisrais. That caused him to be in this state where he would not receive, he would not accept from Shmuel Hanavi. And that sent him even further down the path, till he made his terrible ruling about the Kohanim. Right? So because his learning came from this aspect of moisrais. Right? So remember, please, the physical aspect of moisrais is when our body is contending with waste matter. That's the physical representation of the concept of moisrais, right? And it's like the idea of holding in, right? So another aspect of moisrais, and we have this concept of a guf naki, a clean body, right? There's a concept that in Judaism of having a guf naki. That means before doing anything holy or being involved in things like this, we shouldn't have to go to the bathroom. And we should make sure that things are flowing. In Judaism, it's a big no-no to hold back your system on purpose. Right? So it's a very big thing. The Rambam talks about it. This is like a very, very well known. This is a normative halacha. Right? You're not. If you have to go to the washroom, you're supposed to go. Right? To the extent where I remember asking a question to a big rabbi one time, many, many, many years ago, like just because I was kind of arguing with him, whatever. I was young, and I was like, so he was telling me this halacha that if you have to go to the washroom, you have to go. Don't hold it in. I was like, well, what if you're out in the middle of nowhere? What if you're walking down the street, and you really have to go to the washroom, but it's going to take you half an hour to get back to your house or to somewhere you can go. What, am I supposed to just go in the middle of the street? And his answer was, this is not the real halacha, but his answer was like, maybe that this halacha is so serious that maybe it's better that you should go to the washroom right in the street. Okay, you have to think now, am I going to make a chil Hashem? Is it the right thing to do? It's not the right thing to do. I'm not saying that's the halacha, but it's at least to be thought about the importance of keeping your body clean in this way, of allowing your system to flow through. We don't hold on to our stuff. It's forbidden to daven Shemona Esrei if you have to go to the washroom. You're not allowed. Like even if you're, sometimes it happens in the shul, I'm the rabbi of the shul, and people wait for me, whatever. But if I have to go to the washroom right before the Shemona Esrei, I just have to leave. I have to tell them, you have to go without me. I cannot daven like this. It's against halacha. Guf naki, right? So it's a thing. The Breslov Sfarim say that Rabbi Nachman, when he was a kid, a little boy, and remember, Rabbi Nachman was writing Sfarim when he was a little boy. He was different than little boys of today. But when he was a little boy, he was very, very hyper focused on this, and to the extent where he was too involved with it. This is what he said, so that he like kind of relaxed his, and just was like, okay, you do what you have to do, But he would be, whatever. And I've heard other people talk about this, that people can get too sensitive to this issue, and they'll be worrying all the time before prayers in the morning, like, did I go to the washroom? What should I do? Should I delay? Should I wait? Should I go? Right? Why am I saying all this? I know it sounds a little bit crazy. Just to point out that this is an important idea in Judaism across the board, that we don't hold on to this stuff in our body. And the Rambam says it's terrible for your health to do this. I think in modern medicine, it's also known that this is not a good thing to do. Let the doctors figure that one out. Right? So this is the physical representation of the spiritual thing that's going on, and the two things go hand in hand. Right? Doeg was not willing to just receive and allow this psak halacha, this idea, to kind of flow through him. He was holding on. Right? He held on, and he would not allow that flow to happen. So I want to say over here, this is a big step over here, and once again, this is one of those things that I see in the flow of this Torah that is a bit of maybe a chiddush, maybe not. So what I'm saying, this is my words. It's not necessarily clear in the words of Rabbi Nachman, but we've been talking about the pillar that is our support, but that also connects us from the top to the bottom. We've been talking about that we have to receive from our sages, from Emunas Chachamim. We have to receive, and that receiving comes down, and then what do we have to do? Lahoitzi, we have to bring out mishpatei emes. We have to bring out to light. We have to bring out true judgments. We have to be makabel, and then we have to be moitzi, then we have to give out. It's ki'ilu, we are like a type of channel. You know what we really are? We are one link in this chain of alignment. Just like I have a rabbi who has Emunas Chachamim, and he received from his rabbi and his learning, and he's passing it on to me. I'm receiving from him, and I'm passing it on also. It's flowing through me. How does it flow through me? When I receive with emunah from the Chachamim, then I'm able to pass it on and to bring out what we were asking in the beginning of the Torah. Why does it say lahoitzi? Why is it always to bring out? What am I bringing out? It's because I have to receive it, and then I can bring it out. Right? And then we also saw earlier on in the Torah that Rabbi Nachman said that both for myself, the way I'm going to behave, and for those who look to me for how they're going to behave. I am a receiver and then a giver. But that's the spiritual structure that we're creating over here. But that is like a channel that flows. It doesn't get stopped up. We don't hold things in, and we don't choose to block the reception. Right? If we choose to block what we're receiving, we're cutting off the flow. If we choose to hold in what we're doing, we're cutting off the flow. Right? So this is, of course, the same thing that happens. This is why Rabbi Nachman is talking about food over here all the time. Because the physical representation of this is when we take in food and we do it in a way that's not good for us, and then we hold it in. It messes up our whole system, right? And it stops the flow. Okay? So doeg. Let's hear now the way. So this is what doeg did spiritually. He refused to receive from Shmuel Hanavi, right? He cut off the reception, and see what the pasuk says. Pardon me now. This that it says about doeg in Sefer Shmuel Aleph. V'sham ish me'avdei Shaul. And there was a man from the servants of Shaul, of King Saul, Ne'etzar lifnei Hashem, who held himself back before Hashem, Ushmoi Doeg, and his name was Doeg. So Rashi explains over there, Perish Rashi, Oitzer Atzmoi, La Soik B'Torah. So he stopped. So it's saying he held himself back. Everyone left the, I think it was the oil moed there. He held himself back in order to stay and learn Torah. That's the normal, usual understanding of it, right? That he held himself back in order to learn Torah. But listen to what Rabbi Nachman learns from here. Rabbi Nachman says, Ki limudai, so what was wrong with Doeg? What led him down this path? Ki limudai haya bechinas atzirus. His learning was through a way of atzirus. Atzirus means to stop, right? What's on the stop sign in Israel? Atzor. Atzirus means to stop. This is the word that it says over here. So ne'etzar lifnei Hashem, stopped up before Hashem. Rashi says oitzer atzma, he stopped himself up to learn Torah. Why? Because his limud, his learning of Torah, was from this aspect of atzirus, of stopping up. Of stopping up. What does that mean in Rabbi Nachman language? In this Torah, he was cutting off the flow. He was making himself into a blockage, right? Bechinas atzirus, bechinas moisrais. This, which is this aspect of the same thing of excrement being stopped up, in the body.
Atzilut in Hebrew also means constipation.
Right. I wasn't going to say it so clearly, but this is what the word means. It also means to be, like we say in Yiddish, verstoppt. Right? You eat too much matzah on Pesach, what happens? You get stopped up. Right? It means constipated, they're saying. That's what the word means, that's sirut. And through this, he was not able, he was not able to bring out mishpatei emes, true judgment. Rak mishpat ma'ukol, only a crooked judgment. So you hear what's going on over here. Rabbi Nachman says, I think Rabbi Nachman means to say that this is what he was doing, physically and spiritually. He was stopping himself up. Valkein hayadan she'ein David roy lavai b'kahal. Therefore, he judged that David was not fitting to become into the Jewish people. That's because his learning was all from this whole aspect. So, now, it's not clear, certainly not clear, Rabbi Nachman's words here. I don't see it in any of the discussion over here. I haven't heard anyone talk about it. I don't see it in any of the other things, like what was wrong with Doeg? What was he doing? Why was he like this? Right? I don't know. So Sandra mentioned ego. So, control and ego. So, like I said, I don't see these words anywhere, but this is kind of the way that it seems to me. That Doeg, he was a person, from what we see over here, he refused to be a makabel, to be a receiver. From the great Shmuel Hanavi. He refused to be a receiver. Right? And he was netzar, he was like by himself. Right? He stayed himself to learn his Torah. It's like we see that he was on his own. He wasn't like part of the court of Shmuel. He refused to be part of that. So he was by himself with his learning, with his Torah learning. Meaning, he wasn't receiving from Emunas Chachamim. He wasn't receiving from Shmuel Hanavi. He wasn't in the mode of acceptance and receiving. Right? So I keep pointing to the Svarim behind us when we're talking about Emunas Chachamim, because this is it's the whole of Yiddishkeit, right? And if someone is going to say, there's people like this, unfortunately, is going to say, no, I have my own view. I don't really like the way that the rabbis talk about it, the way that the Talmud, no. This is what it really means, right? They are making themselves alone. They're not connected to that. They're cutting off the flow from all of our Messiah, and they're stopping themselves up with just themselves, right? And that's the inyan of this aspect of holding back one's bodily flow. Is you're holding yourself in. It's all about me, right? I'm stopping in for whatever reason people do this. I don't know. But it's an aspect of being alone and of not being a receiver, not accepting, right? And therefore, what comes out of that person is crooked. It's crooked. So this is what he did. And we see through this whole thing that all of the key words that Rabbi Nachman was cluing us into up until now are all like lighting up all of a sudden. This is one of the special things about Likutei Moharan, and one of the special ways that you're supposed to learn Likutei Moharan, according to Rabbi Nachman and according to his students, is to see how, as we go through, previous parts of the Torah, of the lesson, begin to light up and begin to explain themselves based on what comes now, without having to go to other places to find it. Right? That sometimes the biggest mistake people make when they're learning Likutei Moharan is they say, oh, this is talking about Simcha? Oh, well, you know what? I heard this from the Baal Shem Tov, and I heard this from Lubavitch, and from this over here, and I heard all these things, and I heard even Rabbi Nachman in another place, and they just give their own shir about themselves and their own vision of Simcha. Rabbi Nachman said, don't do that. Everything you need is going to be within this one lesson, and you'll see how things light up. So now, what's lighting up over here is the aspect of the reception, the receiving of Emunas Chachamim, the aspect of the pillar linking up and down, the aspect of listening, not going right and left from what the Rabbanim say, the aspect of receiving, being makabel, and then being moitzi, and then giving out. And what happens when I do that? It goes to light, it goes to truth, it goes to straightness and uprightness, right? This is what happens. And becoming that flow. And then I know how to behave myself. It comes out into my actions, and then it comes out into those who look to me for advice also, right? It flows through in this way, right? So this is one of the ways that we were learning the Torah from the very beginning. Doeg comes, and what does he do? He cuts himself off from Emunas Chachamim. He cuts himself off on his own, learning his own Torah and not listening to what he should be listening to, and he stops himself up with his own Torah and his own ideas, and this creates a whole mess of confusion and a whole mess of the ashanim sruchim, like disgusting vapors that come up from what a person is keeping inside themselves, that goes up and confuses the mind. So he was confused, and I'm sure that it's just obvious, but also his name is Doeg, which means to worry. He was not, that's what the word means, right?
Warrior.
Like lidog in Hebrew is to worry. So, what's a person? We always say this in this year. The person who has emuna is a person who has calm confidence. It's clear. When we have, and we said this about Emunas Chachamim, it's a pillar. What's a pillar? Besides for the linker, it's a support. It's a strength. It's something that secures. It gives us security. When we have Emunas Chachamim, we have peace of mind. We have like menuchas hanefesh. I know what I'm doing. I'm not worried. I make a decision with confidence because I know where it's coming from. I have a story. I can't tell it. Never mind. It's too private. I can't tell it. Too bad. It's a good story about this. But sometimes you can have where you receive wisdom from you ask someone greater than you, someone above you in this chain, and you ask them for advice. And when that advice comes, it's like, it takes a weight off your shoulders, and you're like, I asked the question. I'm receiving the wisdom, and I'm receiving the answer, and I'm doing it, and it's peace of mind. It's menuchas nefesh, it's calmness, it's confidence. It feels great, right? What is it like to be a person who doesn't have that? Who doesn't have the confidence and the peace of emunah? Right? Just thinking that whatever's going on in the world is up in the air. You know, it's all, you know, what's life like when you're a person like that?
Chaos.
It's what?
Chaos.
It's chaos.
Darkness. But there's the flip side. Is
Chaos.
Who thinks that they run the world?
Chaos and darkness, right? Chaos and darkness. And what it's super stressful to be that type of person. Right? You know, sometimes, I'm not saying always, but sometimes a person with anxiety can have their anxiety cured through emunah. Right? That's not really what happens. It's not really what happens. You know what happens? A person gets emunah and they just don't have those thoughts anymore. It's not that it's a cure for it. It's just when a person it's replacing it. When a person has emunah, they could still have those tendencies. But with powerful emunah, you know, life becomes, you know, like Rav Arush always says, that he called the book Garden of Emunah, Began HaEmunah, because before you have emunah, life is one way, and after you have emunah, life is like Gan Eden. It's a different bechin, it's a different existence. A totally different existence, right? How can you be a person who's, how is it that, you know, I was in Eretz Yisrael during the Iran war, and you know, missiles are flying, and buildings are being blown up, and it's actually dangerous. It's pretty serious, right? People are dying. How is it that every single person I interacted with was calm, happy, and just okay, right? There's a certain aspect, and in Eretz Yisrael, this is like injected into a person in a different way, especially in a difficult time. You see Yad Hashem everywhere. Emunah is palpable. Emunah, it's lived, like automatically almost, for depending on the person, right? But it's how does it feel? It's secure. It's security. It's peace of mind. It's confidence. It's calmness. It's a whole different existence. So Doeg his name is I'm always stressed and worried. That's where Doeg was, because he didn't have this rock and security of Emunas Chachamim.
I'd say Saul was the same.
What?
King Saul was the same.
Oh yeah.
He got to that point
Yeah.
at the end.
Yeah. So this is the whole thing of Doeg. So powerful lessons from this aspect of Doeg. So we're moving on to Ois Beis now, letter Beis, point number 2. So this is going to get into something that we have to really understand. So I'm going to give a background over here, because let me give some background here, and then actually no, let's read first, and then we'll catch up. Okay. V'yesh manhigim shenikraim b'shem rabbi. There are leaders who are called rabbi, shelimuda me'ela ha'moisros, that their learning comes from this waste matter, these extraneous tendencies. V'lo dai she'enim yecholim afilu lahanig es atzman, and it's not enough that they can't even govern themselves properly, as we said before, Kanal. All the more so, they're not able to govern other people. They take greatness onto themselves, honor onto themselves, to try to run the world. Okay? So Rabbi Nachman says, we have to make sure, we have to watch that we don't give them rabbinic ordination, confer authority onto them, give them smicha. That we shouldn't give them power and strength. We should do what we can, that they shouldn't be called by the name rabbi. They themselves are not so, it's not so much their fault, really. Because they have a big Yetzer Hara to rule the world. Right? But what about us? Whoever us is when Rabbi Nachman's talking, I'm not sure. Rather, we have to be careful. That we don't give to them this power and strength. Because these people who give them this power and strength, and these people become ordained through them to be called rabbi, they're going to have to give an accounting for what they did in the future. Serious. So we'll go a little far. Just stick with me, and then we'll come back. Through this, that we give ordination to a rabbi who's not worthy, let's say, what happens is the power. So this is going to be an important term for the rest of this whole entire Torah. The power of writing is very big, right? The written word, ksav yadeinu, the writing of our hands. Okay, let's just leave it at this because we're going to talk about it a lot. So when we ordain rabbis that are not worthy, it weakens the power of our written word, says Rabbi Nachman. And it will not have any power anymore. And not only that, it gives the power into their ability to write, into their handwriting. So just to put a little bit of an explanation over here, right? So the way I see it, especially in those times, the written word was the way that Judaism was spread, right? Like after the printing press was made, the books were being printed, and this is what went out, and it went out to different places. They didn't have television, radio, internet, nothing, no phones, no anything. So the only way to get to spread the good word, right, is through written word, is through the written word. So this is extremely important. And if the writings of Torah true Judaism is weakened, and the writings of those like imposter rabbis is strengthened, it's disastrous. Okay? We're going to get to the history soon. And through this, they're able to decree that our writing should not have its power. Rather, only their writing. And then, Jews will be forced to learn their writings. The Jewish people will be forced to learn their writings. And through that, it's going to be decreed that Jews will be forced out of the places where they've lived, of their communities. That they've lived there. Jews have lived in these places for a long time already. And they're going to be forced to go to places that Jews have not lived ever. This is what Rabbi Nachman said. Okay, so now we can go back a little bit. Let's remember that this Torah was written, I think, in 1807, if I remember correctly. 1807. October of 1807. So there's some crazy historical things that were going on at this time that we need to see over here. So first of all, this was the time when the Russians were really, really making all these decrees to try and assimilate Jews and wipe out Judaism. Right? So they had the famous thing where they would take the little boys into the army at very young ages and keep them for 25 years and wipe them clean. Right? God forbid. So another thing that was happening at this time is that they were trying to force the secular Russian system of education onto the Jewish people. So at this time, Jewish education was pretty much Jewish education, meaning they learned in cheder, right? And they didn't have. So I saw Rabbi Chaim Kramer he's careful to point out here that we're not talking about not teaching kids how to have a job, how to do certain things. Just the general education system. So at that time it was a very big thing, and the Torah leaders did not want to accept being forced to have secular education taught to the kids. So you have to remember also, it's not that it's like a, I mean, there was at this time, and there is in certain communities even nowadays, what's the word I'm looking for? They don't want secular education. Even there's some yeshivas, there's a couple of yeshivas in Toronto where they don't have any secular studies at all, right? There is such a thing. But beyond that, this was not just that they thought, oh, you know what Jews need? We like them, but let's give them a little bit more education so they can be a little bit more with it. That wasn't it. The goal, everyone knew that the goal of these decrees were to wipe out Judaism. They did not want religion. The communist socialists were very clear that they were anti-religious. Any religion. Yeah. So this is what they were trying to do. They were trying to wipe out Judaism and religion and assimilate people. And so they set up these systems of forced secular education. Not only that, the state was making programs to appoint rabbis, people to be called rabbi, new rabbis who work for the state, who work for the Russian government. And they are going to be the ones now who lead the communities and who lead the schools and who do all this. So you see what's happening over here is that this is what Rabbi Nachman's talking about. This is, like, practically speaking, what was going on the ground over there. Allowing rabbis to be brought up and to be given the title of rabbi. Like, the Russians knew they couldn't just say, okay, you're a rabbi. They knew they had to work within the system. So people had to be convinced to appoint certain people to be rabbi. So Rabbi Nachman is saying, don't do this. This is going to cause tremendous problems. And so what else was going on at this time? Besides the whole Russian system, this was the beginning of the Haskalah, the Enlightenment, where you had, and the early stages of the Reform movement, right, which was also meant to completely remove traditional Judaism, right? Berlin is the new Jerusalem. We don't need it anymore. Torah is not divine. These were the original, and still, I mean, I think a lot of them don't believe like this anymore, but this was the original beliefs of the Reform system, and Enlightenment for sure. Religion is out, right? So this is what was fomenting at the time. This is what was happening, and with all of this happening, this is when Rabbi Nachman is talking about this. Not only that, do you remember? And this really happened. All this happened, and what happened at that time is that the Jews of Russia were forcibly evicted from many anyway, of their traditional places where they'd lived for sometimes 1,000 years. They were evicted from those places and pushed into what was called at the time the Pale of Settlement, which was an area designated just for Jews, right, kind of on the edge of Russia, right? And so they were forced. They lost. They might have been in an area for, like I said, 1,000 years, hundreds of years, businesses, everything. No, kicked out, put out into these settlements, which were nothing. Jews had not lived there before. This is what Rabbi Nachman said. But he said that what Rabbi Nachman said here was before that happened, for sure. I'm just pointing out, like, he was very tuned in to what was going on. Not only that, we see that after this, what happened in Europe, right? Jews had lived in Europe for literally sometimes more than 1,000 years. Old communities, right? And the progression that went from this point onward till after the Second World War was a constant progression of everything that he's talking about over here, until Jews were killed, expelled, wiped out. Like, there's no Jews left in Poland, right? Poland was like, I think, 3 million Jews in Poland. There's no Jews left in Poland. And where did Jews end up after that? In, like, America, a place where Jews were never there before, right? Going to places where there was never Jews before. Exactly what Rabbi Nachman's talking about over here happened throughout history, which is wild to begin with. Totally wild to happen, to see. But but there's so much to talk about over here, and I think we read the words, and we gave a basic overview of the history, and we're now 55 minutes into the shir. So I think rather than begin the next stage of understanding this, we'll hold it here. And we don't have any other classes going on here today. Nothing. We're on a break from everything else going on in the shul. So we have time. Anybody have any questions or comments based on the shir today?
So the pillar thing that you were talking about is
Yeah.
really the foundation. If we're grounded in this belief and internalize it and really cement it in,
Right. Those are good words. Foundation and grounding. Yeah.
there's no room for anything else. If God is there, how can there be any negativity and
Right.
doubt and whatever, right?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Very good. Anybody else? Any other comments? Questions? What about you online guys? No? Oh, who's coming? I learned that there were significant, you could say out loud if you want, amounts of Sephardim that came with the first colonies to the Americas in the 15th, 16th centuries. Yeah. I don't know significant. There certainly were. The oldest synagogue in both New York and Canada is called, if I remember correctly, it's called She'erit Israel, and it was the Spanish-Portuguese communities, Montreal and in New York. Spanish-Portuguese, and yeah, they came. I wouldn't say significant amounts, as far as I know, a few. I'll tell you a crazy story. So I think I mentioned a few classes ago that I had this interest in Canadian Jewish history, and I took a Canadian Jewish history course in university also from Dr. Irving Abella. Maybe you heard of him. He's a famous Canadian Jewish writer, professor. Anyway, he has some amazing stories. But there is this. Listen to this. Nava's reminding me of this now. But there is this crazy Jew who like in the very early stages of Canada, like I'm talking in the founding times of like the Hudson's Bay Company. So this Jew came alone, and he went like he was like an explorer, and he was like working. I think he might have worked for the Hudson's Bay Company, but he was going from like into all these like First Nations communities, like with his canoe, like one of the proper explorers doing all this stuff, and he actually like he would like marry First Nations women in different places, and he like kind of left his mark there to the extent where they found that there were certain they found like in First Nations communities that were totally isolated, a menorah that this guy left there when he was doing this. I can't remember his name. This is not going on the video online, by the way. But not that we're saying that this is the right thing to do. But he's one of these people who came to Canada and America like a long time before this was going on. Like this was probably, I think this was in the 1700s. Yeah. Sometimes it might have been late 1600s even. It's very, 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 very early. But basically, I mean, for the most part, there was millions of Jews in Europe, and like a handful of Jews in the New World. And after history unfolded, it became the opposite. Most of European Jewry left or was wiped out, and America became the biggest Jewish population outside of was the biggest Jewish population, and now the biggest Jewish population outside of Israel. Right? But the way the whole thing goes, we're going to see there's very, very deep things in this progression over here, and we're going to see how they all link together. But yeah.
The links
Yeah.
we talk about. So because, let's say my family's here 5 generations, so some of them are, I call missing links. So we're almost like strengthening those links. Like I don't know how, if like you could go up to another level, but like that flow, that shaka,
Right.
to come down.
Right. The link.
There's been some
Yeah.
broken links that we have to repair because we do exist in a time where God is not in everyone's vocabulary.
Yeah.
But we need to, hopefully that's what we're going to do is bring that back
Right,
to
right.
the world. And so reconnect the links within families, even from bottom up.
Yeah.
Top down and bottom up.
This is a great concept. We got to make sure that this is going to come out in this Torah also. In other words, Sandra is saying that we have this I'm sure we have it in many of the families of the people that we're talking to right now, but where there was we're talking about this chain, this alignment, right, of the Masorah and of Emunas Chachamim, and how it goes down from one to the next, one to the next, one to the next. So it's both historical, it goes from teacher to student, teacher to student, but there's something also, I think we could say, in family, and then there's something that's just current. Meaning, it's a spiritual uplink that is happening to everyone. Okay, but that's for another time. But it's a good point. You have family lines where there was a Masorah tradition going through that family, and they did have rabbis, and they all had Emunas Chachamim, and then something happened, and there was a break in that chain. So now, I don't know if we say that that link is being rebuilt, or if it's just a new link. It's a new connection. Like that thing's kind of stopped, and now this person, Echad Haya Avram Avinu went out, and he didn't have anything behind him. He didn't have, a nice religious family. He didn't have, in-laws in Lakewood. He had nothing, and he went out and he became Avram Avinu. So sometimes when a person becomes a Baal Tshuva or a Ger, they have to make a new start.
But it could be,
Yeah.
like you think, when you think back, I'm a Baal Tshuva, so I always thought that some grandparent, great-grandparent, intervened, that
Yeah.
I should go on this journey. So to weave back to the original link.
Yeah.
Because I have no concept, no idea who they were.
My wife likes to say.
No heritage.
My wife likes to say this also, that you never know, whose tefillah way back when, whose tefillahs were kept something alive for generations.
Exactly.
That it came back up.
What will happen in the next generation? 10 generations.
Yeah, it's crazy. I also have some old Jewish blood, Jewish genealogy, and it's generations back. And why? Why did it happen like that? Who was the person back there who what did they do that something should remain, and then come back up? You have this with many people. So is it a re-link up? Or
My
amazing.
husband was just nifter a month ago, but
Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry to
we
hear.
created something very, very unique.
Yeah.
Something really new, a new link. Maybe
Wow.
it is. It was
Amazing.
just my own personal journey. I really feel like Hashem picked me up out of the mire and brought me to where I am now.
Amazing. What was your husband's Hebrew name?
Hershleib ben Yeshai Halevi.
Hersh Ben Yeshaya Levi. Mirza Hashem, our learning should be Le'alias Neshama. Hersh Ben Yeshaya Levi.